Again.
Bang away.
This is a regular meeting of the Clear Creek Community Service District, October 16th, 6 o'clock. And this is our call to order. You want to do the pledge?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Louis Johnston.
Kimberly Fickus, Pam Beaver.
Scott McVeigh.
Terry Lincoln.
Paul Kelly, General Manager, Amy Valdez, our Administrative Assistant.
That's a rather masculine voice you have.
Well,
Consent agenda.
wait,
Oh.
open number 4.
Oh,
Open comment on anything not on the agenda.
does anybody want to
It's
talk?
not.
No,
That's you. Hold it.
Go you
My name's Richard Gordon, from my wife with me. We've been customers of Clear Creek Community Services for next month, 49 years. So you've been serving us well. I'm not really here to complain particularly. We're pretty much happy with the service. And I know we gotta pay the, whatever, $59 or $60 a month, even before we use a drop of water. My questions are concerning the pressure. And yesterday I just replaced my pressure regulator on my house. Day before I replaced my regulator on my solar tank. We have those old solar tanks that heat the water. And we put them in 1986. And yeah, I put a couple pressure regulators on that, but it popped off. And the other day, our neighbors on Breeze Way had been out of town, and some other neighbors and I were walking by, and their pipe burst in front of their house. So my question is, what's going on with the pressure of the water district? And every time we have a repair down on our road, it seems like within hours or a day or two, pressure regulators go or pipes burst and things of that nature. And I admit my regulator is probably 10 years old. Yeah, probably could needed to be changed, but why then? That's my question. And the other thing I'm concerned about is the filtration plant. And I don't mean to be derogatory or anything like that, but I end up with some yellow rings in my nice porcelain toilet. And you'd think that would be a normal thing, but what's going on with the filtration plant, with the waters that are coming to my house? So that's the question. And thank you for your time.
You live on Flowers, don't you?
Yes.
And didn't a couple other neighbors have their pressure regulators go bad?
4 of us.
Okay.
Yes,
And it went bad in what proximity to the break that was there?
right. Within three to 4 days.
Actually,
Okay.
it started before that.
Yeah.
It started before that.
So, and we're halfway down the street. Usually the broken lines are happening east of us toward Happy Valley Road.
Okay.
I think we may have some newer pipe, and it doesn't seem to be breaking as much as the older pipe. And I realize that a lot of deferred maintenance needs to be done with our district, but I'm still concerned about the pressure. I was getting 140 pounds of pressure into my house. I couldn't go out of town without worrying that I was going to end up with a flooded house.
Yeah.
And a pressure meter, I managed to get a regulator. I like it down at 40 pounds, and that seems to be adequate for me. I'm happy knowing that the pipes are not going to be bursting. So what's next? If we have more repairs done on our street, do I have to worry about my pressure regulator?
you're on the record with a complaint, so, obviously.
It really isn't a complaint, I just need, by the way, you had two nice people come to my house, and, the answers they gave me were almost like speaking with, Vice President Harris. 2 weeks out. It was like Mutton Jeff, you know, they were throwing figures out at me, but they didn't have any idea, no clue what was going on.
So-
that's it.
You
Thank
can
you
take
very much.
notes.
So there are some answers though to your questions. I don't know if this is the time, you know, with the flow, because we are a gravity-fed water system. So it's not being, it's all gravity-fed. The pressure out here, you've known for years out here, it's always been high. We've replaced in 25 years 2 regulators already on our house, so it's, you know, it's just something that you have to do.
Yeah, and I guess the only question I would ask, what's your address on Flowers?
17380.
And I just spoke with Paul about, the same area. I'm friends with, Stevenson's.
Yes.
Okay, and I spoke with the Stevensons today, and they were saying that after we fixed the last leak, when they started reflowing the water, possibly, Bob thought maybe that enough air hadn't been drained out of the line or whatever, and Paul is addressing that right now. One of the things that, we have is all new staff, and maybe they just didn't leave the lines enough before they regulated it. Because, we did have some people that had their water heater went bad on Flowers. Somebody got their garage flooded.
4 houses.
Yeah.
Got 4 houses right in where ours, Jean, Sharon, and Lori's, we all have problems.
Well, one of the things that we have found out as they have been, replacing the pipe is whenever that pipe was put in a long time ago, and we spoke about this at our last meeting, is instead of packing it with sand around there, which would give the pipe some wiggle room when there's additional pressure, whoever put in rocks and dirt, which doesn't make for a good,
But the pipe that is breaking is beyond the new pipe, the pipe that was put in years ago. I mean, we got the new section, and then the old section starts with the neighbor beside us. So we started with a problem, Jean had a problem, Sharon had a problem, Gloria had a problem. She's the one that had the flooded garage. And then,
well, those are things that Paul needs to know, because I have to tell you, we have a brand new, she's not brand new, but she is the supervisor for our distribution, and she's an amazing woman that goes and checks everything that we do, keeps records, and is, I'm sure, gonna get this fixed. So, but it's been a matter of finding out where and how to get it all fixed.
okay, so if you start at our house, 17380, and go east, where the 4 houses that are at. And the one beside us is where the water changes from the newer pipe to the old pipe.
Yeah, and I will just say, again, it's public comment, so I'm not really here to fully respond. We got addresses, we'll follow up. But I do appreciate you bringing this publicly, like I mentioned, to Director Beaver, because one of the things we have found is not only are the pipes aging, but our district's pressure relief valves are all not been checked for years, right? We finally did a flushing program through a lot of our system this last year. When you do flushing programs, you're also supposed to check your pressure relief valves and your valve, exercise your valves, right? So they don't stick when you actually need them. And so again, we've been talking to our distribution supervisor, who's been here now 3 months, and she's finding this to be an issue not only on Flowers, but we had the same problem this weekend on China Gulch Road in Bond. where, when we turned on the water, we had quite a bit of popping of our own valves, not customer valves. So again, some of that too is just some of the new people that, you know, they probably should have waited until 7 in the morning to repressurize it instead of 2 in the morning, right? When you guys are all asleep. So these are some of the procedures that we're working on as well. Plus, if you did it at 7, then you're not as anxious to get out of there, and maybe you would stay until it's all done. So those are just some things, just so you know, that I appreciate you making us aware. But we'll probably have our distribution supervisor go out and meet with you as well, because she's more knowledgeable than the 2 guys that were there. I'm glad to hear they were friendly. But,
We have a tight knit group on that street.
I know.
Many of us walk together up and down the street. By the way, it's nice to see, we haven't been to a water board meeting in a long time. It's nice to see a lot of new faces up there. The other ones I knew, they're nice people, but it's nice to see some new faces.
Well, and one of the
Thank
other
you.
things that you, that we have been brought and aware of in the last few years or so is a lot of preventive maintenance, checking the pressure valves, like Paul was saying, has not been done.
Exercising the isolation valves, same thing.
So our guys are playing catch up on a lot of things, so it's gonna take us a bit, but, the preventive maintenance is something that just went by the wayside.
I love an honest answer.
Yes, ma'am. You're not gonna yell at us, are you?
No.
Okay.
You can if you want, we have to listen.
My name is Joanne Flodquist. I was involved in that China Gulch water break, and we got no notification that anything was wrong, and I wondered, how do you decide whether you send out an alert or not?
Yeah, so through the chair, this was definitely a challenging one on a weekend. Our new staff do not know how to send out alerts on a Saturday, and the rest of us were not around to be able to do that. So we just had to go with what we had. And again, a learning opportunity for our distribution supervisor. She's learning how to do it, and normally the protocol is, while you're draining the pipe to get it to be fixed, you go knock on some doors and just, you know, try to let people know and put on a door hanger. And again, first time she's had to do that on a weekend, so.
Okay.
Our apologies, for that.
Okay, so in the future, we probably will get an alert then?
Yeah.
Because we got one today about, I guess there was another leak,
Yeah.
and that one we did get. In fact, we got a phone call. It was weird because it didn't say who it was coming from. It just said Thursday. And I finally had figured when they started talking about water that it was from the water district. But it was, somebody needs to, if it's a generated message that goes out, if somebody would at least tell you who it's coming from and then repeat it. Because we heard the times, but we didn't hear what date clearly. We weren't sure what date, and it never repeated itself. So it was kind of questionable, but then we did get an email.
Right.
So that worked out great.
Again, this is part of the new customer database system that is much better at focusing, getting out that information. But those of us that generate the message are not the ones listening to the message. So hearing this is fantastic, because Amity in particular and the other staff now know that we should type in the name of the district, maybe repeat it again, and
Yes,
then
that
get
would
it
be
out.
helpful.
Yeah, this is great. So,
Okay. And I have no, other than that, no complaints. You guys are doing a great job. So thank you very much.
good to know.
Okay, consent agenda? Anybody?
I have questions when our criminal manager is done.
Well, just to the board, I just want to comment, the board's aware that, you know, the bookkeeper has reported for the last few months that we're behind on our activity reports. And, but last week, she gave me two separate reports, expenses and sort of a quarterly revenue. So I decided, just because it's kind of what I've been using to track ourselves, to throw it in here, but I'm asking you not to approve 5D. Just, it's really for your information only. It's quite a bit skewed, as you can probably tell if you looked at it, by the fact that we had almost $1 million in a payment to the contractor for our backwash ponds project, but we had $1 million come in from the loan. But it's really instructive. We expect that all of this will get resolved for our November meeting, and we'll have approvable items for that.
So there will be the budget to actual for last fiscal year, along with an actual certified activity report.
So yeah, ultimately, as mentioned last month, we need to catch up for, I think it's March or April, May, June of the last fiscal year, get those activity reports updated and reconciled. Then we can have a full year of, you know, revenue and expenses in compared to our budget.
Correct.
And then we will have July, August, and September, which is the first quarter of this fiscal year, which should have been on this meeting's agenda for budget action.
Right. So if I can expand on this a little bit, do you anticipate approximate time when this will be done so we can hold a finance meeting? You know,
We're aiming at the first week of November, and I have on my notes to send the finance committee an email on Monday when I know for sure. But thanks for asking.
Very good.
Yes, ma'am.
So just to go in order, Paul, I know it's a little thing, but it's a big thing to me. So I don't know who did the minutes this last meeting.
Well, we need, you know, these need more eyes than just our lunch, so
Okay.
it's great.
Well, the problem is that if you look at number 8, okay,
Yes,
those aren't minutes. That isn't what transpired at the meeting. This is just things that you're repeating from your report. Okay, so that's just my concern, is that minutes need to be reflective of what we said, and whether it was you discussed the operational report or whatever it was, but this just is just a report, so it's not really minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. So if we go to the transaction detail account,
Can we back up
Okay,
to
yeah,
bills
minutes.
paid?
to the who?
Bills paid, B,
Oh, I was,
that's next. actually.
oh, okay, because I was just going by the order of the,
Oh, okay. I did
packet.
flag 2 bills. One was to pay supply for $6,061, and it, what's that, Badger meter for a reader? I thought our reader was fairly new. What happened to the one we've been using? That we had to spend $6,000.
This is part of the meter challenges that Morgan Rao, our distribution supervisor, has tackled.
Okay.
Yes, we did buy one of the newer meter readers, but it wasn't until Tony was here that we discovered that all the drivers to make it operational had not been downloaded by the previous group. And so that got downloaded in June. And then in July, when they went out and actually read the meters, they realized that they needed another antenna. So there's 2 kinds of transponders. The old ones, which are CE transponders, and that one, everything read fine, but the new one, there's a 500, I don't even know how many for sure, transponders, including all the new ones we bought, are ME. And so, we had to purchase the ME, reader.
So whoever goes out is gonna have to carry both.
No, they're doing them both at the same
Oh,
time.
okay. No way to convert the old reader, or could we have sold it back to them and gotten some sort of credit, because we spent a fair amount of money for that, and I thought it included software upgrades. So I was surprised that we were putting this kind of money out for another one.
So maybe this won't be the place to interject it, but since we have this new reader that's supposed to be handy dandy and read everything and help the guys get it done, where we only have to send one out instead of two, correct?
No, that's still need to.
There'll still be two. There are two readers. One of them is the tablet reader, which this did not include this antenna. So that's one. We also have the other handheld, electronic reader, which, by the way, the current one we're using is a loaner, because we had to send that one ours back in to get it repaired. But both of those readers means you have people in different vehicles driving around picking up their, the meter reads. And then we still have.
And that was supposed to, make it more efficient where we can get the meter reading done in one day, correct?
2 days, yeah.
The goal, even 2 days. How many days before that was it taking us?
4.
Well, it's taking, well,
With readers.
the previous, group staff, up through May, it was taking 4 to 5 days.
Okay.
The new group, it's been taking 5 to 7 days, at least one of the times, and now it's down to 4 days. And what we have found is that there are still a significant number of manual reads that, and some of those are because we didn't know that there was a transponder that wasn't sending us a signal. Some of them is because our new staff, thanks to Morgan, are actually physically reading every one of those manual reads. Because it appears that for previous months, they weren't. In other words, they were just, well, I can't get through the fence, so they just estimated it. So now we're actually doing it. It takes a little longer to actually do the read. So, yes.
My whole thing in that was, you know, I thought these were gonna help us with the man hours that we needed, and maybe cut down on some of the man hours.
Well, again, starting next week, we will find out. And as Amity's been working with Morgan, and Morgan knows the goal is 2 days and then half a day for whatever we missed or we did.
Okay, thank you.
Is there a priority list of those manual reads to get the new transponders before others? So we can eliminate the manual reads as soon as possible?
Yeah, well, we will see. That's part of our distribution supervisor's learning curve on the equipment that we had that we thought was functional, that needed to be made functional, and the ability for it to pick up whether the transponder is dead, not functioning, or not there.
Right.
Kind of need to get to that, so that, because we've been replacing them, but we still have a whole bunch more that need to be done. So basically, the other thing is the old system had 10 or 11, routes. And over time, customers get added, changed, things get changed. All the computer software now gets upgraded. So now we have people driving on the opposite side of the street on different routes. So that's the other thing we have to do, is we have to get probably down to 4 or 5 routes and get them so that they're more efficiently read.
Can we get an update from our distribution supervisor in a report for our next board packet, possibly?
Well, I was gonna report on it later,
That's
but
not the
she'll-
place, that's not the place, this is the
No.
place for this discussion.
But, yeah, she'll be here at the next meeting to do it further.
Very good. Then I also flagged, the next one, which was the chemicals out the water treatment plant. Do we have surplus totes in the yard? Considering the water usage this year, a certain number of those totes must have been gone through, and typically we store them here, and in the past we have sold them to customers who need them, so I was curious if there were any totes available that we might be able to let the public know if they wanted to purchase.
There are no current, there's a couple of totes available, but all the rest, the other 12, we had, a company come and pick them up, take them away.
They just came and got them.
For free?
And we
I wanted the yard to
present
get
those out
cleaned up.
to possible, I understand cleaning up the yard.
Yeah, we've had those surplus for 3 years. People during the drought definitely would have had some use for them, but we had no interest for quite some time, so it was time to clean up the yard and get them out of here. We'll have, by the next year, we'll have a bunch available for us.
Maybe we can put something in the newsletter periodically. Okay, then we move on to, next, Beverly, since that was Bill's paid.
Well, it looks like you had another one there from Beeler Tractor, whatever that is.
Oh, I didn't
Water treatment, yeah, right here. Get one.
I? Yeah, I reread the bill and it didn't look like it was grant related, but something to do with what, building a pad for the backup generator?
This looks just like maintenance.
Yeah, it was maintenance.
Okay.
It's air filter, fuel filter, maintenance.
So, okay, so then I'm gonna go back to the paid bills, B, that list that you have there, the transactions by account. So we've got, I would just like to have some of, so this part here, okay. So there's a few items on here that don't really explain what the bill is for.
Yeah.
So like all of the gentlemen that went to training in Cottonwood, it says training, but it was really for gas. So or travel. The same thing for, Melissa, weekly deposits, it says, for the answer. Well, it's travel, it's payment for gas, or, so, I just thought that needed to be cleaned up a little bit.
It's a good reminder. We've had this conversation with the bookkeeper to do better on the memo line.
Yeah,
One of the other problems right now we're having with QuickBooks is you'll see like some of them that don't have anything on the memo line. That's not because there wasn't put anything in there. It was because there were two invoices combined into one payment. And so for some reason, the system is not even putting any memos there, let alone at least one.
okay,
Is
okay.
you see those? There's a few, like Pace Supply, that probably was one check for,
3 or 4,
I think if you recall, I think there were like 5 or 6
Yeah.
that were in there.
Pace
So
Engineering?
there should be at least,
okay.
Supply, okay.
And then so then just the memo line, there's some problems, because there was Spirion of Northern California for $150, and the memo just says Clear Creek Community. So I was like, okay, what is this for, this $150?
yeah, and again, it's a great one. So just so you know, and the board knows, Spirion is in Anderson, and they do all of our background and drug tests for
Oh,
new employees.
background, okay.
When you're done, I've got a couple of things.
That's- Yep, that was it for me.
Okay, can we move to, item 5054? So 50,504,
You're talking
account
about,
services. It was for 9,900. I'm wondering if that included the $7,000 retainer, because it doesn't break it out, and I noticed in some notes, then we had put out a 7,000 for a retainer. Was that a retainer for the CPA?
Correct.
Oh, okay, I thought it might have been, but it didn't clarify it, so I wanted to make
So
sure.
there was the, the initial payment, which was basically the retainer, the 7,000, and there was an additional bill. And you're right, again, this is an example of,
Okay.
it would be nice if it, had both of those numbers in there.
And then the next one is 51,442, and that's CalPERS unfunded, the unfunded liability. 47,000, is that part of last year's unfunded, we're just paying it off in quarterly, or what's going on with that?
That will be, I think, 3 months at $15,000 a month.
And that's catch up on last year, is it?
No, that's this year.
So they're anticipating there will be that short, $150,000, $180,000
Yeah, well,
will be unfunded?
as I reported in July, we received in the second week of July, 3 unfunded actuarial liabilities. One for our classic employee, which
Right.
was a couple $100.
Mm-hmm.
One for our retirees, which was something like $1,200, and one for the PEPRO, which was for $150,000 and something.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned, that was quite disappointing, considering we didn't know what it was when we adopted our budget in June. We had estimated it at about $100,000, because that was,
110,
yeah, that was what it was the previous year. So that'll be definitely something we're gonna need to update in our budget.
Yep.
But no, that's, well, let's go back and take a quick look at, the UAL for this payment in October was $15,024. So yeah, 3 times 15,000 and change is pretty close, it's 45,000, so.
So they're just not investing their money very well in that account. So it's becoming underfunded, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, they have an estimated, return necessary for 6.8, it used to be
Yeah.
a lot higher. We contribute 15% of our payroll to CalPERS. About a little over half of it is from the employer, a little less than half of it is the employee.
Correct.
Every 2 years, they do a actuarial study to see, and unfortunately, 2022 and 21, 22, and 23 were really pretty bad market years, so they were under that 6.8%, and so we get nailed with this year. Now, hopefully, they just announced, I was just at a meeting yesterday, that they announced that they had 9.3 return this last year, so maybe they'll redo the calculation and
We'll have already paid for it by the time.
we'll have a
Yeah,
little.
that would be nice. Because otherwise we've got to adjust the budget from December.
Well, I'll report on those later, but
Yeah.
since you're talking about this one, I'll specifically say that this was a seminar by CalPERS for managers, mostly general managers or HR directors and different things like that for cities. One of the things I did tell them was, it's pretty irritating for a small district and challenging for a small district when we're already contributing 15%, and basically at the end of this year, this fiscal year, we will pay more to the unfunded actuarial liability than we will pay to the active employees' pension.
And I'm assuming this is prorated depending on the number of employees. So the city of Redding's is huge.
Yeah, because that was the response from the city of Red Bluff and Reading, and if you, you wanna see ours? I'm like,
Yeah. I understand.
Yeah, exactly.
Those are my two.
Anybody else got anything on the consent agenda?
I move that we accept the consent agenda A through C.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Very good.
He knows it.
Well done to the motion makers right away. Thank you for that. Okay, as it relates to our business, which is the Bureau's account reconciliation, and just sort of update, mentioned in the background that the Bureau yesterday had a WINAC seminar or webinar, informational meeting. I was at another meeting, so all I received were the materials. The primary element was them announcing that they're starting to sort of audit the 201, which we were one of, agencies that paid their WINAC. They also sent out a preliminary list, and admittedly, I looked for our name and found out that we didn't owe anything on the preliminary list, so I moved on. So I haven't heard anything back from them. The other thing I do want to mention that is I'm going to have a meeting next week with a few of our colleagues. I had lunch with our Anderson Cottonwood Irrigation District for ACID General Manager. You probably have heard that the state and the environmental groups were pushing hard for a new water flow regime called natural rivers or natural flow, which meant that most of the water would just go out to the bay and not get used. The water industry and even the state water board have been working on something called healthy rivers agreements. Some of it's been called voluntary agreements. It's still up in the air on this, but the Bureau is involved in it. But we're worried that there'll be some water required to contribute to it, and that some of us on the CVP might have to. I don't know how they can do it, but you know, we have a contract with them, so they have to negotiate with a bunch of us to give up some water. But ACID in particular could be significantly impacted by that. So just wanted to give you a heads up on some of the Bureau activities. And Mr. Chairman, the next item hopefully is fairly self-explanatory. In May, you might recall that our distribution supervisor gave his 2-week notice on May 1st and at noon on May 2nd, ended his 2 weeks and just left. So very critical position. I started looking around, so we immediately started recruiting for that position, but we knew it was going to take a few months. And so at the May meeting, I had reported to the board that a company called Water Talent actually had a CalPERS retiree, Tony Tomasi, former utility director at the city of Shasta Lake, and a D3 T4 was available and to do part-time and interim distribution supervisor activities. We all kind of knew of him. He did a great job. And as it turned out, we were able to interview and bring on Morgan Rao as the permanent one on July 8th. So it was a little earlier than the 2 months because he started on May 28th. So the appointing authority to this position was under the impression that as long as he had been separated from service for 180 days, and he had been, and that he wasn't going to be expected to work more than 960 hours, which he wasn't, 20 hours a week for 2 months, that we were in good shape, and we were doing it through Water Talent and said, you know, we'll take care of all that. So subsequent to that, we have found out that under this statute, our government code 21221H, the board of directors are supposed to pass a resolution to appoint somebody in that position that we already had defined under in our MOU. And so this is the template. So the awkward thing is, I'm the appointing person of anybody under me. You appoint me. So this resolution basically just retells the story that I told you about hiring this person. I found out, and I had to fix a couple of things. So what you have in front of you is sort of an amended or corrected resolution. I also have, and they're in the back too, a red line version. I was told yesterday, actually, that it needed to include specifically the dates that he was going to be appointed to. So basically, this resolution just says that it's a critical need position, that Tony Tomasi could be a contract with Watertown Incorporated, could be our interim distribution supervisor. It confirms that I have reported to you that we posted the job. By the way, in your background, there's a sample of one of our postings, and that it was effective May 28th, that's when he started, and that it ran through initially July 26th, or until the new person started, which is at the bottom of that first page, whichever was sooner. It also has some items in there that CalPERS requires, and then also at the end it just says, because this position was abruptly vacated and we started our recruitment and we needed the position to do things like meter reading, water testing for leaks, leak repair, employee safety training, etc. I also have in your background the posting, the 2 task orders from Water Talent, one is for temporary distribution supervisor, and then the second one for consultant, and also the letter that I sent to Water Talent saying we filled the position, so now we're starting task number 2.
So we just need to vote on it?
Well,
Yeah.
Well, I have a question.
Right.
Okay. So, it said whichever was sooner, which would have ended then July 8th when Morgan came on board.
Right.
So after that, he then became a consultant,
Sure.
and as a consultant, we don't need to have a resolution then for that?
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. That's a very good question. And this may come as a shock, but the state of California is really into their I's dotted and their T's crossed. And they were very specific that since we had a position called the distribution supervisor, and that it has a job description, and that his task was to be the interim distribution supervisor, we have to have a resolution for it. His task list, as you can see from the consultant, was to help us with policies, construction, on call, and all these other things, which are not really necessarily part of the job description. So that's why there's the bifurcation.
Anybody else?
Anybody from the public?
Nobody wants to make a comment?
in that case, I move that we approve resolution 2024-10.
As amended.
As amended.
Yes.
Well, that's kind of what's in front of us. the
Yeah.
amendment.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you very much. Have the chair sign that tonight so that we can get that off to them. So item 6C, the board might recall that we received from HMS, which is our auditing firm, Horton, McNulty, and Saturn out of Chico, that they completed our 22 audit. That was back in August. We reviewed it, as you might recall. We authorized a letter to be signed by the chair, noting that the auditor should have taken some responsibility for it being late, not just the district's responsibility for being late, and that we really wanted to get caught up on schedule. About attached email from the auditor. And they had the only option to do this. We did not, as you may recall in our agreement. They triggered a 10-day notice and said they would no longer work for us, because they could not, they didn't have the resources to, actually get on schedule. So, attached for your consideration is a draft RFP for auditing services. This is a combination of an old one that the district used in 2021 that started the process of selecting Horton. And a couple other districts, I think Bella Vista and Centerville, sent me theirs. They had done a few years ago. I will tell you that at our Water Resources Managers meeting, everybody is having a hard time getting their audits done on time and actually getting auditors. The public sector audits seem to be not as popular as they once were. So this is what you have before us. Just so you know, it calls for proposals by the end of November. We will have a finance committee meeting to do the review and selection. It has some
recommendation on selection.
yeah, well, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Slip of the tongue. A recommendation to the board for their selection at the December meeting. Thank you, Director McFay. And then there has a few items in here like, we want them to, 40% of their score is going to be on expertise and experience, on 30% on audit per approach, 30% on price. And then we also have just sort of the way they'll get paid. We were requesting them to make a proposal. We really kind of bandied this about internally. We thought, well, should we do it for 3 audits and then, an option for 2 more audits? On the other hand, we have one audit that's behind, we have another audit that needs to get going, so we really, and you'll see in here, that we, put, I'm not finding it, basically a note that, here it is, that we're looking for a proposal to get us caught up. In other words, their best proposal to make sure we can get our FY23 audit done, maybe by the end of first quarter of next year, and then roll right into the 24 audit, get that done by the second quarter of next year. That'll get us back on.
Right, and there's an option for them to come here and do a presentation to the finance committee.
Yeah,
That might be helpful, considering that we're using now a CPA to help us work
Yeah.
through the weeds and whatnot, so that they understand that this would be a much cleaner audit for them to do.
Question, we've paid them everything, the audit people? When we don't,
Horton McNaught.
Yeah, the prior auditors,
Yeah.
yeah, they're
do
paid.
they owe us anything, since they backed out on the deal?
No, and we have requested from them, because our CPA has requested it, they wanted a bunch of their spreadsheets and things that they had used for input, and they've supplied those very
Good.
quickly.
Because they want rid of this.
Yeah, I found it, it's under 4C, the district desires to have its fiscal year audits as current as possible and expects that a FY audit is completed within 10 months. The request is that the proposal include a detailed timeline for the completion of the 23 and 24 tasks in a timely manner, ensuring they are finalized before the FY25 audit would be scheduled, and level. So, and I just realized that we don't have any page numbers on this, so we need to do that before we
Yeah.
send this out.
Do you have any idea about how many companies this is gonna be sent out to? I know the last time we did that, we sent out, 8 or 10, and got 2 replies maybe?
Well, I don't necessarily off the top. I mean, I think think I would like to send it to 20 companies, to be very honest with you, and.
We're gonna try to stay somewhat local in case we'd like them to be on site for part of it.
Yes, but I think two districts have had to go to Sacramento to get some of the audit, so I think we're gonna need to, just to make sure, I mean, you want at least 3 proposals. And
Oh, at
bids,
least,
right?
yeah.
So, I think we're gonna need to broaden the loop a little bit. Obviously, if they're a long ways away and they don't want to come make a presentation, that could
Yeah.
impact our selection process.
Then a webinar, a Zoom meeting. Will we be sending one out to the current CPA company if they do audits?
No.
Okay.
No, we already asked them and they would not want us to send it to them. But we have asked them for a list of auditors that they think we should send it to, and they would recommend us send it.
Good.
I'm just curious why they have to send 3 hard copies.
You know, it's a holdover to all these old RFPs.
Yep.
And, you know, interestingly enough, the template that I had didn't even have an email option. And all of them said you had to send 5 copies. So I figured if I kept the copies part in there, it would motivate them to email it to me. To save the postage and printing.
So what are you looking for us on this?
Well, first of all, anybody from the public wishing to speak on this item? If not, I would actually like a motion to issue the RFP, basically, or issue the RFP. Send it out.
I'll make that motion.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you very much. On the general manager's report, we already talked a little bit about before the meeting. We received, after we posted the agenda, I would have put this in kind of as a backup on my report. Yesterday at the Sonoma County, or the Shasta County Board of Supervisors, they approved the attached list of qualified candidates who filed for the special district directors and appointed them in lieu of election. So the 3 members of the board of directors for Clear Creek, Logan Johnson, Patricia Beaver, and Scott McVeigh have all now been officially appointed and don't need to be on the ballot. So we knew that already because there weren't more than 3 people, but it's more official. So you officially take office in your new term the first, I think it's the first or second Tuesday of December. So we'll swear you in at the December meeting, like we did last time. I did mention that I went to a presentation from CalPERS. It was part of their I think they call it sort of an executive outreach discussion time, and they talked about their investments, talked about the UAL stuff. You know, we had sort of a vigorous discussion on that. They did admit that the thing that we just did for Tony Tomasi is some of the newer rules. Even the guy making the presentation says, yeah, you know, a year ago I would have just said, as long as they had separated from, 180 days and didn't work more than 960 hours, you were fine, but there's a lot of new updates on things like that. Some of that is from state legislation. Some of it, they're really dealing with the state legislature constantly passing bills requiring the investment pool to divest themselves of things that the legislature doesn't like, which is one of the causes, by the way, a few years ago of our reduced return, because when everybody knows that you have to sell a stock, they're not going to give you what it's valued at. So that caused a little challenges. The other report, was about the, medical, insurance costs going up 10 and 12%. We already knew that, and retiree Medicare supplemental going up. So I was quite gratified to hear that there were others, that really, nothing against the person reporting it, but hey, this is pretty unsustainable for, small districts, and, you're just touting the fact that you have 2 million people covered by, CalPERS health insurance, when, it seems to me you might have a little more bargaining power to keep that cost down. We have had a couple of leaks. We heard a little bit about the flowers leak, the Vaughn and China Gulch leak. I wanted to use this opportunity to report that we are aware of some of these pressure issues. We are aware that some of our aging infrastructure isn't just what's in the ground. It includes our hydrants and our pressure relief valves for the system. But also, as you might recall, we had talked about, the need to compact our soils better. And, Director Johnson even said, hey, at least go get a tamper or a red tamper or a vibrator, blah, blah, blah. Turns out we had one that nobody had actually been trying to use. We got it repaired and it broke on repair. But at least we have one and it's
At least we used it.
Yeah.
New ones run what, 800 to 1,000?
Yeah. And the other thing too is we definitely are happy about getting Sunrise Excavating to do some of the follow-up repairs on the patch jobs. They've done a very nice job on those patch jobs, and hopefully they will do so on this China Gulch and Ball.
So that was one of my big questions was, on our new policies and procedures, it said that we put, everything out for, bid, or to see who would come, with the best price of working with us. And what we learned from Axner is we need to specify very carefully that if they camped it all and they paved it all, then they pay for it when it sinks, not
Yeah.
us.
Scope of work.
So with Sunrise, are we doing that? Have we put it out where we had other people that Morgan talked with too?
Yeah. So Morgan was instructed to talk to at least 3 potential contractors to do this work. And just basically, kind of the informal quote, and it's not over $100,000, but kind of using that little bit of a form that Chair Lincoln has mentioned that we use. And in this case, Sunrise was the best.
They did a stellar job,
Yeah.
but I think that she needs to have a sheet of paper with those 3
Yeah.
estimates in there to cover her money too.
Yeah. Yeah, I wrote that down. I think we need to make sure that that's in the file.
And we need to have it documented that they will pay for it.
Yeah.
Well, that's part of the
That's
scope
part
of
of it
work.
was that they'll warranty the work.
Right.
Well, it's all nice, but if we don't have it in writing, it won't do us any good.
Agreed, it should be part of the contract language.
The only other things I would mention is that the backwash ponds project is proceeding. They are pouring concrete. We do expect that they will finish this first pond by mid-November so that it could be tested by the end of the month, and then they gotta be out of there. And there are a few things that they think they can do from the end of November through till going to the next pond. But we'll see how that plays. We're really focused on getting the concrete poured.
I appreciated the pictures in the packet. Are those pictures being posted on the website?
No, they
So
have not
that
yet.
customers can see the work?
They have not yet. So we trying to figure out, there's a few, dead pages on the website, some really old leak pictures and things. And so I've been looking at ways to have sort of, the grant project update as part of
Yeah,
that. So-
part of the drop-down
So
menu.
we can get some pictures and.
Good.
As mentioned, well, we just did the RFP for the audit services. Any other, thought, I think I mentioned to you last time, we did update the website so that it links to the video here, so if you can
Good.
go to that YouTube. We changed the color just so that it looks a little different, we'll probably do it again. That's it. Oh, and, I know that the surplus, what we refer to as junk, the, generator, it was, picked up last week and, we received our $1,500. It's always nice to have somebody pay us to take it away.
Can you tell us how much is in, what is that, the sweep account that we set up with the, bank? How much is being kept in there? I think, Melissa said we were gonna try to keep about 50,000 in the general fund to carry things, and then the rest of the money was going over there.
Well, the bank, counseled us based on sort of their initial activity, and we'll see how things play out, to have in the primary checking account, I think about 150,000, and whatever extra will go into the sweep account.
Right, maybe an update at the finance committee.
Yeah, I don't have a number on that right now. Also, just, I checked online, but for some reason, it wasn't even, in our account list, it just said sweep account and had a number.
Okay.
For the, operations report, I wanna mention that, I talked to, District Supervisor Morgan, and, she, would love to come next meeting and kind of give her report and an update, and give her any questions and input. We are, familiar with those pressure issues that, the director, Beaver mentioned that, she does confirm that there are sections on Flowers in which the backfill is just dirt instead of sand. So that's kind of challenging. They've also, been working on, testings on the wells. I did have a conversation with PG&E on the standby again, so hopefully we're still tracking to keep it at the low rate. There's not much to report at the treatment plant, other than they did have, aside from what's in the report, the second bullet point item was there was a pipe that burst inside the treatment plant. And it flooded the pipe gallery, the office, and the bathroom. They did apply a temporary repair, and, to do a permanent repair, they're gonna need a welder to patch this piece of pipe. And, they're gonna wait till the middle of the winter when they can shut down that section and, be able to do that. And then, Amity, do you want to cover anything on our, admin side?
We were able to bring, the aging ARs down, not as much as we'd like, but we are working on it. It is much better than it was last month, I would say. We were able to do 82 shut-off notices. Only 10 customers actually had to have their water turned off. The rest either paid their bills or made payment arrangements, so. Still working on it though.
Catching up and having a full-time account clerk, has been great, right?
Question on water treatment, have we reached out to Pace Engineering to look into, what is that, Train 6? And costs involved, and possibly including failing turning forward?
Oh, yeah, they have started the work, they did a walkthrough, they, remember they'd given us a bid and we put it in our.
Right.
They expect to have a draft in November for Bill's review before they finalize it. Cause I told them I want it in front of our board on December meeting.
Good.
So, the tank up there, that may wait until, January, because they want to do a physical internal
Right.
inspection, not diving. So what they're gonna do is we're gonna have to empty the tank, they're gonna crawl in and do the physical inspection, and we figure we can do that during the low flow times in January.
So it still has water in it?
Oh, yeah.
No, I thought it was empty.
No, you're talking the 4 million tank up?
No, the 1 million.
Oh, the
tank,
1 million.
the treatment plant.
Okay.
So, one of the things you have on here is office improvements. First of all, the front of the grounds are, I told you, is looking much better. We're mowing our lawns and it's looking green. But it says that we're getting quotes for the slurry seal.
For the parking lot, yeah.
Well, I'm gonna voice my opinion, the water treatment tank's more important.
Well, my concern with that is, my notes were budget. So how's our budget with that? Because if we don't have it planned for, then I don't wanna move forward with it.
That would be under building maintenance.
Again, is it budgeted for it? Since we haven't seen an update on numbers, we don't know where we stand, so.
Yep, well, we don't know what it costs until we know what it costs.
Correct. So,
My only thought on that is there potential liability? Customer comes in, some of those cracks are getting a little deep.
Yeah, they're not that bad.
Hey, I'm just saying.
so I also wanted to know the status, since we've got a full complement of the hydrant on Hope K. Cause I thought we had the equipment for that, we just didn't have quite the staffing complement, and now we do. So where are we in
Yeah,
doing
well,
that?
our full staff started, we just, it's not been scheduled yet.
Okay,
But,
cause I saw the other things that were being scheduled in October, and I thought, well, we need to put that on our priority list also. So under leak management, this is a funny, I'm being facetious, okay? We have encountered a substantial number of leaks, both planned and unplanned.
I read that too.
So how are we planning these, leaks?
Well, regardless of, the beautiful, humorous turn of a language, it actually, it needs to be stated better, but we do encounter leaks. Well, we had one on, actually, on Lassen, that, was basically just our side of a valve, or a meter. Very small leak, so we don't work on a weekend to go fix that, so.
Yeah.
Morgan has these leak lists, you probably saw.
Oh,
She got a
okay.
million of those
So
little
that's
leak
how it's
lists.
planned.
Those are the
And so what she
Okay.
does is,
Okay.
okay, I got 3 of those, I
Finally
need a
got
back
it.
trailer, and I need all the guys there, and and that's how it's planned. So, it is an awesomely turned language, but there are actually planned, but it should say planned repairs.
Yeah.
Nice. I think the last thing I would just mention before we get to board member items in closed session is, under committees, I believe, there's gonna be an agriculture committee meeting in December 10th or 11th.
Yeah, I believe it'll be about there. I'm waiting to work with Dennis and finalize that. And then we will probably hold one late in March. I'll be looking into that. And that will be held to organize the next farmer's market. And farmers, well, if we're doing standing committees, then I might as well, because it's the ag. Saturday the 26th will be the last farmers market of this year. It's been reasonably successful. Come on out, last chance. I'll be selling pomegranates and persimmons and pears and there'll be others out there. Hopefully, they're back with the bread.
Excellent. It's not noted here, but I mentioned it earlier. We expect to have that first week of November, a finance committee meeting and try to get a lot of this, all those things caught up. And then, the last planning and steering meeting, in which we reviewed the water shortage, policy, drought policy and update, and the extraordinary operations, repair and maintenance spreadsheet. That we plan to have a meeting in November to do a follow-up. I think that's it. Board member items.
Anybody got anything?
Of course I do.
Yeah.
Question for you, since I'm hearing from some customers that they're seeing, some of the district vehicles being, used for personal use at times, do we have in place mileage logs for the use of these vehicles?
There's mileage logs with each vehicle.
And are they writing down the mileage for the person who's taking it home when they're on call? And then verifying?
Yeah, I don't.
Because I
don't
think
know
that
for
might be
sure.
a real good way to cut back on that.
Yeah, we'll have to check on that. Kind of interesting accusation, hearsay of personal use. I mean, what does that mean? We've got lots of vehicles driving around the district doing repairs and maintenance and fixes. We have one vehicle that the on-call person does take home, obviously, so that will go outside of the district a little bit. So if you hear of those kind of things, we kind of need to go back and check logs. We'll need at least a date.
Agreed.
So.
Yeah, because the one that I had was somebody at a certain time that we called in, it was lunchtime, and it was like, well, they were driving down the street pulling a piece of equipment, and lo and behold, all the workers were here.
Oh, yeah.
But we knew what date and we knew what time.
That's all I ask. When you hear stuff like that, let me know, send me a quick email, text, or call, but we just need kind of at least a date and a time to be super helpful.
We should let them know also that the community recognizes the trucks. And if they're running a stop sign, someone's gonna tell us, and we're gonna hear about it.
But they're not always, there's so many vehicles that look like ours too, which is hard.
Well, some of the Shasta County,
Yeah.
I agree, I agree. One of the uses was, a truck was seen, husband and wife, and personal stuff in the bed of the truck out somewhere.
Personal stuff, I was gonna say, maybe it was
No.
Morgan.
No.
Passenger seat.
So, you know, that's why I bring it up.
Yeah.
Just accountability.
So, one of the concerns I have, Paul, is with our new employee, that we now have four distribution, operators. So, I know you said it was in the budget, but it's, my question is when do we stop at a complement? Do we, you know, what if you come back and say we need another one? I'm just so concerned that we need to really start saving money, and I know we were so terribly mismanaged that we have had to spend money the last 2 years. So I want to start tightening, and I just see us spending and continuing to spend. So I spent a little bit of time going through manuals to see if there was anything that talks about a complement cap or just, you know, something of that nature. So there's nothing in your contract, there's nothing in the rules and regs, there's nothing in the general rules book that has any of that in there. So I would like to hopefully maybe pursue that a little bit of having, and I don't know how everybody else feels about it, because it could be, it's a hard thing, because we don't want to chain your hands down or stop you from being able to, you know, handle the hiring of people that you need, because that's not it at all. But I am just one that we need to start saving, I think, a little bit more. And so, you know, this is $90,000 for another employee. And I realize what happened to us when we lost everybody, you know, was catastrophic. And so I do understand that. But one of the things when I was going through and looking through the manuals was the organizational chart. And so when I look at the organizational chart, it shows we only have 3 distribution operators. So that form has to be updated. And then with that form that needs to be updated, the page after that also listed employees, and so we also need to fix the contact list and that is section 6 in the handbook that we have. Also on section 7, it has a list of water agencies, and it still has Skip in there as the contact point. So if we could get that updated, yeah, updated also. And then I think there was,
Is this, and this is in the director's manual,
yeah, the handbook,
so hopefully you're.
yeah,
got
so
these
that
notes
was,
down.
yeah, 6 and 7. I think that was it that I found. Okay, I thought there was one other thing, but I don't see it. Okay, that was it on what I have. Okay.
Anybody else got a?
Well, I'd like to, kind of go along with what Beverly said, and one of the subjects we discussed maybe at the next meeting is, how we, you know, even with the people that are here, how we decide where we tighten our belt. Because, somebody was talking to me, and I said, well, I'd love a Mercedes, not really, but I can't afford it, so I don't drive a Mercedes. And to be honest with you, I'd love to have a bigger crew to do a lot more things, but the fact is that we haven't grown as a district, so our income hasn't increased. We're just now getting all the bad debt collected, so that is helping in some ways. But we've had so many additional expenses because of deferred maintenance that you're not responsible for, but we still have some things. Just so you know, we have a train, which is one of the filters up at the water treatment plant, that is shut down because it can't work, because it's in bad shape, and it'll be $300,000 to fix. And then we have a second one that's starting to go, or it could be more, we don't know. So at some stage of the game, we have to say, I'd love to have more people, or I'd love to have, you name it. We've got to get some of the deferred maintenance that other people have left for us to clean up.
We also need to build some reserves so that we have the money to fund those known, unknown leaks and, you know, trains and other things in the water treatment or distribution. We're an aging system.
Well, that's one of the things that, you know, in this budget, we really cut things so that we could find that 300,000, which I thought we had. So if we're not gonna spend it this year, where does it go? You know, does it poof, or can we slot it somewhere that we know that for sure we've got it?
Yeah, and that's why we need to get budget to actuals for last fiscal year, and then, you know, correct quarterly, you know, activity reports, so we really know where we are financially. I mean, we can look at bills paid, we can look at income and whatnot, and it gives us a general picture, but, you know, to get the actual reports that, you know, drill down, and we can take a real good look at, because in December, we may need to be meeting, or in January, and making adjustments to the budget, and we have to know what needs to be adjusted and why. You know, the slurry needs to be done, but we may have to put her on.
Well, we need a
A vac trailer.
back trailer too, but are
Right,
those just
and
wish,
I'd
are
rather
those
find a
just,
good used one at,
are those
you know,
wish lists
12,000 than a brand new one at 85.
I think that you going through and organizing the warehouses and whatever, and finding a camper.
Oh, look, we do have one.
That's like going through my husband's garage and finding everything we always needed, we
My
didn't know.
Multiples of them too.
So, yes, so we've got to do that, we've got to take stock in everything we spend. We've got to fix some of the infrastructure.
Anybody got anything else? So we're gonna have, we're gonna close this section and go to a closed meeting to do the general manager's performance, so.
Then we'll return to the report.
Yeah.
Yeah, there will be no action out of closed session. Any action will happen on the November agenda.
Yep.